Women's Loss of Rights During Napoleon's Reign by
Jessica Guerin,
Alessia Acquolini, Alana Lipsy,
and Hikari Mackey.
Napoleon Bonaparte believed women were inferior to men, even though they had played a very important role in the French Revolution. He insisted that the woman's place was at the home. Educated women would have not agreed to this point. They believed they should have every right to work as a man did.
Napoleon established a code when he became First Consul, which guaranteed the right of equality under the law. It also gave the right to hold property, have freedom of religion, and freedom to pursue work of one's choice. But surprisingly, women actually lost rights under the code.
It placed women once again under the control of their fathers or husbands. Husbands and fathers could order the woman to do whatever they asked and punish them if they disobeyed. A wife had no rights to property other than what she inherited. A woman required her husband's permission to purchase or sell a house. The woman who had been active in Enlightenment and in the Revolution must have felt betrayed by Napoleon's civil code.
Before marriage, a woman was under the authority of her father, and this authority was passed to her husband after being wed. The husband had full authority over his wife and her wealth. On marrying, the husband and wife's possessions were combined, and it was the husband who administered this joint estate without the wife's approval. She could not sell any property or make contracts by herself. All this had to be done under her husband's supervision.
Divorce was non-existent and infrequent. Legal separation was possible only on the grounds of physical abuse or defamation. If the husband committed adultery, he would not be punished, but if the wife did, she could be sent to a convent for an indefinite period, and her wealth was split between her children or other relatives and the convent. John, where's the rest of your wages? How am I going to pay the landlord and buy food for the children?
Shut up! What I do with my money is no business of yours.
In 1787, papers began to appear claiming that all humans were equal and that sexual discrimination was wrong. The claim that women should be given the vote was also made, and in 1789, the National Assembly heard many motions in favor of the sex, which brought questions of economic subordination of women and the evils of the convent life.
This was a time of revolution, of ideas of citizenship. The feminists argued that for equality. They were not alone. In February 1792, many Parisians of both sexes requested the Assembly to pass laws against the power of the father and of the husband.
In 1791, the National Assembly declared the principle of civil marriage. In 1792, the divorce laws were passed, such as demanded by the Society of Revolutionary Republican Women, which, together with all women's clubs, was subsequently declared illegal in 1793 by the National Convention as enemies of the Revolution.
Although the French Revolutionary Constitution of 1791 specifically refused to grant citizenship to women, the idea of a social contract between husband and wife gained momentum. This concept was later expanded in the code.
Society's structure had been subject to substantial change during the Revolution. Ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity, although not completely realized in the case of women, led to an increased expectation. Furthermore, Napoleon realized the need for speedy improvement. The law had been left confused and diminished. Canon law had been pushed aside, leaving huge gaps in the legal structure so long in place. These remained a frightening array of laws in the form of royal decrees, ordinances, and case law.
There was diversity in the law from place to place, Roman law in the south, and customary law based on feudal Frankish and Germanic institutions in the north. Napoleon saw the need to balance power between the courts and the legislature, instead of stripping of the courts of their power by confining them to literal applications of statutes, as the early revolutionaries had done. His aim was to effect a consolidation of the achievements of the Revolution and a smooth transit from past to present.
All attempts at codification prior to Napoleon had failed. These attempts had often sought merely to bring the laws together in a user-friendly package. Napoleon aimed higher. He strived for a complete legislative statement of principles rather than rules. He wanted purely rational law. Any gaps were to be filled by the courts by means of logical reasoning and analogy from other provisions. Napoleon started the task in August 1800, shortly after becoming consul for life. The laws were enacted between 1801 to 1803 and were one body of legislation by 1804.
Napoleon's contribution to its drafting should not be underestimated. He was a keen contributor to the debates and often kept the lawyers on track when they ran the risk of becoming too theoretical without due consideration of the practicalities of any given situation. Rousseau assisted Napoleon in his task. It was he who held the opinion that legislation was the most important governmental activity and a molder of men and states. This certainly fitted in with Napoleon's visions of himself and the future. Rousseau's insistence that women were vastly inferior to men guaranteed that women would be disappointed in the code.
The case of women being inferior to men was a constant issue during the Napoleon reign and contributed greatly to the women's loss of rights. Napoleon himself had many interesting views on the subject, mostly being that women did not deserve the same rights as men.
This made a huge impact on society as a whole, as some gained respect for women while others didn't. Despite everything, it could be said that the events that occurred led to a step closer in equality between men and women.
Thanks for watching!